Let's bring in Hollywood divorce attorney David Glass for more on this. David?
People going through divorces are going through some of the hardest times of their lives, and a lot of what they're going through is emotional. And in any divorce, there's a huge sense of loss, and loss of relationship, of money, some friends.
Hi, I'm David Glass, and welcome to the Hourglass Podcast. We have a very dynamic guest on the show today, Ann Serrano Lopez. She's going to talk to us about all things marriage. Ann is the former wife of legendary comedian George Lopez and has been a producer, actress, and dancer. She's appeared on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Punk'd, as well as a long list of shows. She also has been the energetic producer behind several of her former husband's comedy specials, including George Lopez, Tall, Dark, and Chicano, George Lopez, America's Mexican, and she was also producer on Mr. Trooper. Now, this couple was married for 18 years and share a daughter, Mayan, who's now 28 years old. Now, Mayan stars with her father in Lopez v. Lopez, which was just renewed for another season on NBC. As I understand it, Ann and her former husband have a positive relationship. They work together well in nurturing their daughter. I can't wait to have her share how she has kept her relationship civil and positive since their divorce in 2011. 12 years ago. Welcome, Ann. As you know, our audience is comprised of those going through the divorce or breakup process, and they need advice from all sorts of people on how to get through it in a classier, a more civil way. Yeah. So I have a number of questions I would like to ask you, and first of all, I consider it an honor to have you on the show today.
Gosh, thank you. No, I consider it an honor to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
People navigate this very emotional and difficult journey. It's hard.
Sure. So first, can you tell us about your marriage? And after 18 years, what prompted the two of you to quote uncouple?
Well, we had what I thought was a good marriage. We met during a casting for a movie. It was my first casting job. We clicked on having Latinos have positive roles in television. I'm Cuban, the first one in my family born in the United States. So we had a lot of things in common, and we were a great team with a family and a business. And but then about 6 years in, he misbehaved, and we had to reassess. And my daughter was 3, and I definitely wanted her to have her father in her life. And we went to couples therapy, and he went to individual therapy, and he took it very seriously. Right. And he became a better man, and that was great. And I told him at that time, if it ever happened again, finito. Right. So it did happen again, and it was pretty public. It was in a tabloid. That's how I found out. Yeah. It was a pretty devastating way to find out that your husband's leading a double life, basically. So I just made the decision that was just not something I could tolerate. Right. And decided to divorce him. So that's that.
So that was obviously a very hard way to find out about it.
Yeah, it was a very hard way. And it was interesting because I think the nail that in our marriage was Lopez Tonight, that television show, his talk show. He just got a really big head. I mean, my daughter was like 12, 13, and she would say, "When's Mr. Limelight coming home?"
Right.
When your child says that, you're like, okay, and all of a sudden it's all about them, which it was a lot in the marriage anyway. But, he kind of pulled away from the family man, and that was really hard. That was really hard.
Sure. It's I mean, it's unfortunately it's relatively common in actors and producers, and it takes a certain type of person to get out there.
Yes.
And to act and to host a show and to do all those things. The downside of that is that sort of self-centeredness and I can do anything and I'm a very important person affects their relationships.
Yeah, I mean, we were very much a team. And I remember one day I was giving him some advice, and he said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And I thought, okay, because we were really a team. And I thought, okay, that's very unusual. He had never done that to me before.
Yeah.
So there are signs, that I think my therapist says that I should open a paint store because I painted so many red flags white.
Right. Right.
Sometimes you just don't want to see it, you don't want to see it. So you kind of just brush it away like, okay, la, 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 la. I'm not looking at this,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, you have to confront what's in front of you. And that's not always easy.
Sure. And then jumping ahead a little bit, after your breakup, did you remain in therapy and did you work on that tendency for you to either ignore or paint red
Funny,
flags?
I had therapy this morning. I mean,
Okay.
I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been in therapy since the divorce. Yes, 12 years ago. So yeah. And I think I had a very codependent relationship with George. In my family, I was kind of the misfix it. And so whether this was a true or not, I perceived helping as getting love.
Right.
So I had to kind of break that cycle in myself. So one of the things in a divorce is, especially if you're the one that's been, cheated on, or, you're the I hate to use the word victim because no one's really a victim, but if you're the one that's been, hurt, um, is to blame the other person for everything. And I think I had to look at my own patterns of behavior and my own even from my childhood, and say, oh, this is why I even picked him,
Right.
because of all these things. And so that's what I've worked on, is myself, and having a more, I used to think selfish was a really ugly word. And it's not necessarily, you have to think of yourself too. I was always giving, giving, giving.
Absolutely. I mean, after I got divorced 15 years ago, it would have been very easy for me to. I'll give you the top 10 things my ex did wrong.
Right.
But it took me about a year of therapy to figure out how I contributed to that, how I sought that out, what I did to encourage my ex to do that.
Yes.
And it was only going through that therapy that I became a better person and made myself a better future partner to the woman I ultimately met. So I think it's something everyone should do. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't take my advice after they get there.
Well, therapy is really, really important. I read, my therapist had a lot of books on narcissism that I read that helped me understand more his behavior. I went to Al-Anon. At the time, George was really not even acknowledging that he had a drinking problem. So it's really hard to deal with someone or forgive someone when they're not even acknowledging that there is a problem. And in Al-Anon, they really help you realize that it's not about you, and you have no control over that situation.
Yeah.
You have to really let them go with God. It's like, just it's their journey. It's not. And me being a misfix-it, I was always trying to fix the problem, but it's really a problem I can't fix. He had to. I also joined a writing class, which was this class, it was really cool. It was like, write where you are. So they give you a prompt and then you would just start writing.
Yeah.
And it just helped me. It wasn't even necessarily things about the divorce, but it just gave me an outlet to open up my feelings. I went back to an acting class, which I had not been to, and I hadn't been to an acting class in years. And I was the oldest one in the class, but it was great to have this place to also, take out some frustrations, take out some feelings, to do something creative that I used to do, that I had, gone away from for many, many years. So it was going back to something. So I would say for women, find something that fulfills you, something that fulfills you. It can be a ceramics class. It can be just reading an hour a day. It can be anything, but you need something, because especially if you have children, this is you have to think of them first.
Right.
You have to think of them first. And so a lot of it is, for me especially, there were a lot of things I could have said in the press. There were a lot of things my ex-husband was saying about me that were not true. Somehow it got out that he divorced me when I divorced him, which was a very weird dynamic, because I don't know whether it was his camp that did it.
Mhm.
I don't know whether it was just a better story, but I think I think that it made him look very bad.
Right.
But for some reason that didn't bother him. I think he didn't want it, like, I don't know, he didn't want me to divorce him, So you have to be very careful with the ego. Like, I could have gone out and said, oh no, I divorced him. But you have to say, you may want to blow it up, but you're
Right.
not going to get necessarily what you want. And I think for women, you really need to take control of your divorce. This is not something that's happening to you.
Right.
Take control. Take control of the finances, take control of the children, take control of, this is your time to really think about what you want and go out and get it. I had a really great divorce lawyer that allowed me also. I was sometimes writing the letters, and because I'm a good writer, and she would fluff them in legalese and then send them. But you have to, because everybody wants their day in court,
Yeah.
but you have to think about, is that day in court going to serve you?
Mhm.
Emotionally, financially, your child. There's a lot of things I could have said, but am I going to do that to my daughter? No.
Yeah, and it's that decision of how public am I going to make this? How hot am I going to make the fire? How much am I going to blow this up? Which is a strong feeling when you're getting divorced, especially if you were the person who was wronged in some way.
Yeah.
But it's the question of how much is this going to cost down the road to get this little bit of satisfaction. In your case, everyone should know that I'm the one who asked for the divorce. But what is that tension going to do down the road?
You always have to maintain contact with wisdom.
Right.
Take yourself out of that emotional, vindictive place,
Mhm.
and really think about what you said, what's going to benefit you down the line. And for me, it helped me to really think about, I mean, I'll be really honest with you, it was kind of simple,
Yeah.
but I thought about karma. I was like, I don't have to punish him. Karma's a bitch, and
Right.
she'll take care of him.
Yeah.
She'll take care of what needs to be taken care of. I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of mostly my child.
I like to say that divorce is a second chance at happiness. That's partly as my job as a divorce lawyer, to tell people there's something coming that's going to be good after this.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you find that divorce ultimately led to more happiness in your life?
Yeah, because we had a very chaotic life. When you are a celebrity, your biggest commodity is time.
Mhm.
My life became much more simple. I didn't have to deal with, I was very involved in his business. So that was a little bit of a hard thing to give up.
Mhm.
And I started producing things on my own. But all that stuff that happens with celebrity it's very taxing. And so I became, I could just kind of breathe and be a normal person for the first time in 20 years. So that was nice.
Now turning towards your daughter, she was about 15 years old when you got divorced, right?
14 and 15, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then how did she manage the difficult transition? How did it impact her life? And what were you able to do to try and make it easy for her? Because a 15-year-old girl, I have older daughters, almost the same age as your daughter now, but they're sometimes tough to deal with. So tell me about that process.
I think
from
that
her.
was a really, really horrible age for her to have to go through that. And in some regards, she's still going through it because, her dad's a little difficult. But, I think one of the things because I had her in therapy, one of the things her therapist told me was, you need to tell her the truth always. One parent has to tell the truth.
Right.
And sometimes it was very, very difficult, but I had to tell her the truth. Another really, really hard thing as a mother was you have to let your child see their parent for who they are. You can't sugarcoat it. There were times where he wouldn't, well, most of the time he wouldn't see her for like 6 weeks,
Wow.
a 2 hour. I had told him, look, you are, because he had a talk show and then he was doing stand up on the weekends. And I was like, look, you're always home Sunday night. Have a standing dinner with her every Sunday night. I think because I said it, he didn't do it.
Right.
Would see her, once every 6 weeks. And it was like, how do you can't make that okay for a child.
Yeah.
Run. It's better for them to understand who that parent is
Yeah.
than to try to sugarcoat it and try to present them in a different light.
Mhm.
That's their that's another thing with divorce. It becomes their relationship. It's no longer a family relationship necessarily. It becomes their relationship with their father. And you have to respect that. I always, wanted her to have a relationship with George.
Sure.
One of the first things also my therapist said is, because he wouldn't co-parent. And it was like, to co-parent, you first have to be a parent.
Right.
Wasn't being a parent at the time. If my daughter comes to me and says, hey mom, he's being a dick, I'm going to say, you know what? Absolutely. He's being a dick. I'm so sorry he's being a dick. And you have to really validate their feelings. You know,
Right.
that's what their show is about.
Sure.
That is what their show is about, is this estrangement and this, it's a fictionalized version of it.
Mhm.
But, even to the point where my daughter has gotten jealous. She calls her character Schmayan, sitcom Mayan. And she's gotten jealous of her character because her character is having conversations with her dad character that she wants to have in real life and he won't have them.
Right.
But I'm very proud of them. Look, I love George. I will always love George.
Mhm.
Oh, he's the father of my child. Hello. And to see him, he's so good in this show.
Yeah.
And to see the two of them, it's just it's wild. It's just I'm just so proud of both of them. It's great, and they're confronting a lot of things that are not easy. So I'm proud of them for that too.
Yeah. Now, for viewers who don't know a lot about your background, are you willing to share with us your decision to become the kidney donor for George?
Yeah, George popped his Achilles tendon, and the he had the operation, and then the wound wasn't healing, and they were like, so they were doing this blood therapy, and he had to have much more tests, and it showed that his creatinine level was increased, and so we went to they said, we think you need to go to doctor, and this doctor comes in. He had the worst. Both my parents were doctors, so I'm very comfortable around doctors.
Yeah.
Puts George's charts up and he goes, Mr. Lopez, you're sick. You're very, very sick. By 45, you're going to need a kidney transplant. And immediately out of my mouth, I said, I'll give you mine. And I just there was never any doubt in my mind that I would, that's my husband. I love him, of course. Now, the odds of us being a match were millions to one. So that was a really hard thing. But they do, okay, you can't just give a kidney. You have your own set of doctors and you have to go through psychological testing.
Right.
Two questions that I had not thought of. They said, what if the kidney doesn't take? What if he rejects your kidney? And I was like, oh my God, I hadn't even thought of that. And I said, well, at least we gave it the old college try. And then they said, well, what if you get a divorce? And I hadn't thought of that. And I said, well, it would hurt more, but ultimately, I'm giving someone the gift of life, and I'm giving my daughter's father back to her.
Yeah.
And that is, everybody after the divorce, you're going to get the kidney back. You're going to get the kidney back. And it's like,
Right.
that's silly. It's a gift. And that was the first thing I said to my divorce lawyer. I said, the kidney will never, ever be brought up in this divorce.
Yeah.
Because it was a gift. And, I'm very happy that, every year my daughter thanks me for having her father.
Yeah.
No matter what, when there's life, there's hope.
Mhm.
There's hope with a relationship, and so I always wanted, I've always felt that it's still one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. That What an amazing story.
It was amazing. I mean, we really like, I was so determined. It was so funny because I just knew, I almost felt like somebody else, I don't know, who knows? I just had this feeling like I was the donor. And they were like, well, Mrs. Lopez, you don't understand, you have to go through this and go through this, and it has to be this test and this test. And every time I passed a test, the doctors would be like, okay, she passed another one, she passed another one. And it was like 6 million to 1 that we would be a match.
Yeah.
So it was it was a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah.
And when he lived with it for 6 years, we kept it quiet for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see someone you love suffering like that, and then the next day, like literally the next day after the kidney transplant, his eyes had been yellow, his eyes were white, and he said he could taste food and he felt good for the first time in like years.
Yeah.
So, it's a great thing. Yay, organ donation.
Absolutely. I've got the sticker on my driver's license.
Yeah.
But tell us more about you right now. What projects are you working on? What are some of your goals? What's making you happy these days?
Well, what makes me happy? Let's see. I just moved into a new house.
Mm-hmm.
I finally sold mine's childhood house, which, I had been wanting to sell it for a long time, and she really needed it. She needed that house.
Right.
And it was just very big for me, and it just, I just wanted to change, and so she finally got the show. She bought her own place. She's like, so I was like, okay, this is a good time. And I actually got an offer out of the blue. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of putting my nest and making it, like, just decorating it completely different than my old house. I had a 1926 Spanish, and now I'm doing it very modern. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of like, I'm like, hey, honey, let's make it colorful and fabulous. Yeah. And, but I'm also a real estate investor. So that's something that I've always loved, real estate. And so I just bought a couple properties in Mexico, and I have rental properties kind of all over the place. And so that's takes up a lot of my time. And I'm also, in the process of producing a couple of things I can't talk about, but I'm getting back into the producing game. And yeah, it really makes me happy. And just, really just, it's a good time for me right now. I feel like my daughter is settled. Mm-hmm. And I can go travel. I can go do the things that I want to do. I think for a long time, because this was such a difficult and public divorce, and she suffered so much, that I was really making sure she was okay. And now she is. So it's my time now.
Great. To wrap us up today, yes. Do you have final remarks? What would you like to say to those in our audience who are going through the breakup process right now? Something to give them hope that better days are down the line.
First of all, my mantra during the divorce was, don't let them take your crown. My girlfriend had this painting, and it was this woman with a crown on, and all these hands were trying to take her crown. And I asked her if I could have it during the divorce. And I would look at it and just know, you are a queen. You have your crown. Keep your crown intact. Do what's best for you. Lead with love. Don't be vindictive, because your children are watching. But love yourself and allow yourself to flourish.
Great advice. Absolutely. Listen, thanks so much for being so candid.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Funny and entertaining through talking about a difficult process. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I know our viewers are going to love this episode.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks.